Take Command is a new book released by Dale Carnegie. The book features leadership stories from our podcast guests, as well as young, up-and-coming professionals. Published by Simon & Schuster, Take Command is co-authored by Joe Hart and Michael Crom. Visit takecommand.com for more details and to buy the book. Now to our latest episode.
Welcome to Take Command, a Dale Carnegie podcast, the show where we seek to uncover what leadership means in today's world. I'm Joe Hart, CEO of Dale Carnegie, and we will be talking to diverse leaders with stories to tell across various industries to help unlock your potential for success. We will be sharing real-life insights into leadership, which in turn can help spark the next level of your growth as a leader. Our guest today is an Argentinian businesswoman and entrepreneur. She is the founder of a next-generation cryptocurrency and is also focused on the digital transformation of the world of work. She's highly respected in the fields of technology and digital economy and was the first Latin American woman to lead a company to unicorn status in 2020 with an valuation of more than $1.6 billion through a global private offering. She received the Lifetime Achievement Award from Women in Tech and was selected Woman of the Decade by the Women Economic Forum. Because of her unique perspective on technology as a factor for equal opportunity, she was a featured entrepreneur for W20 Argentina, was a keynote at the Global Entrepreneur Summit 2019, and led the innovation panel at the President's Summit of the Americas, a gathering of leading CEOs and chiefs of states. We are excited to welcome the founder, president, and chairwoman of Unicoin, Silvina Moschini. Silvina, so nice to see you, and welcome to the Dale Carnegie Take Command podcast.
Lovely to be here.
It's great to see you again. You and I met at the NEO IP conference back in North Carolina, and you gave the keynote speech, a fabulous keynote speech. And I said to myself, it'd be really terrific to help Silvina on the show. And you also have a Dale Carnegie story, which I'm looking forward to asking you about. You are an Argentinian businesswoman and entrepreneur, many successful companies, the first Latin American woman to lead a company to unicorn status. Also, the executive producer of Unicorn Hunters, which is a TV show, a Shark Tank on steroids, I might think, right? About looking at companies that have the potential of being privately held billion-dollar companies. And you're also one of the people to start Unicoin, which is an innovative cryptocurrency. Actually, just to back up, tell us a little bit about where you started. I mean, you're from Argentina. Did you always have kind of in your DNA a desire to be an entrepreneur? Tell us about you.
I would say yes and no. I didn't know what it was to be an entrepreneur when I was young, but my dad once told me a great story, and it's something that I always remember, and it impacted me basically on what he wanted me to be when I grew up. And he told me that I needed to be a princess, but a princess that make her own castle. And that shaped my ideas about how we're going to become this princess entrepreneur, change the way I see life from pretty long experience working with corporate America until becoming a builder of companies that has a focus on providing digital solutions to improve people's life, especially uplifting women. So that's a little bit of the story behind where I come from.
Now, was your father an entrepreneur? What kind of sparked that story, do you think?
No, it was actually, my father was a colonel in the army, so it was far from being an entrepreneur. But I learned from him a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work, a sense of responsibility. And I also inherited from my brothers, who are Olympians in equestrian, the competitive spirit. So I think that the hard work combined with the grit, the resilience that I lived in my family through different iterations led me to become a very resilient woman and an entrepreneur, which by definition, you need to have a lot of resilience and grit to, pursue this type of career.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy career. And boy, all the things that get in the way and the obstacles along the way. So what was your first, kind of foray into the entrepreneurial space? And what kind of obstacles did you overcome to be successful?
if I tell you all the obstacles, we will stay here forever, Joe, but I will make it in a short story. I was part of the leadership team of a .com company back in 1999, where the world was divided between the brick and mortar companies, the traditional corporations, and the .coms that are the startups of now. And back at that time, I was working to shape the future of finance in 1999, 2000, building an online bank. And at that time, it was a very crazy idea because, as you can imagine, people were not very convinced of the idea of putting their money in a bank that they couldn't see. And we were building up this company with education, with content, by showing how much efficient and positive for everyone will be to have better financial systems in our hands. And this coming from Latin America, it was a big leap of faith because in my region, people are like super advanced in terms of financial systems. So when I was part of this team, I was not the founder, but I learned something that instrumental for me as an entrepreneur is that if you want to have a better future, you need to build it. You cannot just wait for it to happen. So this was a pivotal point in my life in which, by showing in the journey of an entrepreneur who had the vision to build the largest online bank in Latin America, I saw that why not? I can do something similar. I can do something even better. I learned that, entrepreneurs are builders, that we will change things if we set our minds to do it. I learned from Dale Carnegie that business is a contact sport, and you need to create relationships, and you need to learn how to bring value to people so you can also get value for yourself. So that was something that changed my views, because back in my times as a student or recent graduate, entrepreneurs were those people that didn't find a job, or what they were working as entrepreneurs in between jobs. So it was not the plan A. So I make it my plan A, and I love it every single day since then.
It's interesting to hear you explain this, though, because we think about entrepreneurs as people who are builders and leaders and courageous for taking risk and so forth. And part of what you're saying is that in your country and your culture at that time, that wasn't necessarily viewed that way. You were being a little even countercultural by being entrepreneurial.
Yeah, it was not hot. Now it's for the generation, the millennials and the Z Gen and even X Gen, my generation, it's something natural. But for people my age, it was not so cool. The cool thing would be to work in a very large company and, made a career and spend a lot of time, make a lot of money, spend a lot of money, and that will be it. You don't take this kind of crazy risk if you are a sane person.
Did you ask yourself, you must have been questioning yourself, what am I doing here? What kind of was going through your mind at that point? Did you think about getting off that track and kind of going into a traditional company?
I wonder many times what I was doing here. I just didn't think that I would like the pace of traditional companies, because I left the corporate world precisely because I was hired because of my innovative mindset and my energy, but I was almost fired for that also. So one day I ran into a situation in which they told me, you are great, you're bringing a lot of innovation, we love your ideas, but you're pushing too hard. So innovate, but not as much as you rock, but it's okay if you're a pebble. So I decided that if I wanted to work in a company that I would love to work for, I will need to create it. So I left a big check, a regional vice president position in a large company, to start anew. And I have no idea where to start at that point. It was hard because I came from a corporate background with a lot of people doing things that for me, they were super unknown. Like I didn't know anything about HR, accounting, or legal. When you're an entrepreneur, you are a jack of all trades. You need to do everything. It was quite a challenge. And oh yes, many times I said, like, what I'm doing here, I'm crazy.
I can completely relate. I know that when I started my first company and I left a phenomenal job in real estate for, starting something with nothing, ordering furniture, going to the post office. I mean, you do everything. And you ask yourself, especially when you had that vision of where you were before, which was, certainly a much more successful financially. I mean, it must have been a real leap of faith, especially at a time when online banking was not something that was really well regarded. You had that self-doubt, I would imagine, which many times people have.
Yeah, it was super challenging because it's not only about the money. The money, of course, is a factor, but it's also about the belonging. When you spend a lot of time in a large company, you end up believing that your company is like your husband. So it's like suddenly he died for you. So you are like a widow. You are Silvina of nowhere or nobody. So it was a challenge that it totally changed the dynamics when I built the brand. So the brand that I represented was the brand that I created, and the brand became stronger than myself, and the vision became much more bigger than myself. So then you are driven by the vision and the purpose and the impact that you can have and the responsibility of the people that believe in you and that are part of your vision. So I think the drivers changed. For me, never the driver was money. It was about doing something that will make me happy, that will give me purpose and will change the dynamics of the markets and the lives of people.
So what happened with that company? You built it, you sold it. Tell us about the success of that.
The first company that I built, it was one of the public relations agencies that I have now, that I don't manage, but I still have it. It's working, as it always has been, with large technology companies and startups that are scaling up, focus on thought leadership, especially for women that want to build a brand on their own. But then through this company, we scale up to different models. One was a remote workforce management platform, because I needed to scale my team. And I said, okay, how can I do it? And then I said, well, I may tap onto global talent, but global talent is not physically present. So we developed a software to manage remote teams. And then we built a talent marketplace to be able to hire them. And then we saw that women perform better. And then we did a spin-off and built the women platform. And then we needed to raise money to make them grow. And we went with a fundraising model that it worked through global crowdfunding, and then it was one the show. So one thing led to the other. So they are all interconnected. And my goal is to take companies public as a conglomerate, and also to take Unicoin, the cryptocurrency that we built also as a complementary product of the show that I also ran this year to exchanges and the holding company public, whenever the market gets better for public companies. So don't have the crystal ball on that. I hope for the best and the soonest, but I don't have a timeline for that immediately.
Well, it's interesting just to go back. You did one thing and you saw opportunity and you went in different directions, whether it was developing software for remote work, by the way, long before anyone was really talking about remote work the way that we are right now. So you had a vision, you saw that, you started to go after that. And then you saw that women in the workplace and women working remotely, you started SheWorks, which is a company that focused specifically on women remotely. But there were a number of different things that you went where you kept going in different directions. And a lot of the people listening to this podcast, it might be entrepreneurial, might be at different stages of their career. And tell us a little bit about just how you kind of kept going. You must have had barriers along the way. You must have had thoughts that said, can I do this? Or what am I doing? Maybe I should stop. Did you have those kinds of thoughts? And how did you just have the mindset to overcome them?
What I do is all connected. So one thing led to the other, and one company was originated in my need to solve a problem that I couldn't find a solution in the market. So we create this ecosystem in which we create a company to solve a problem for ourselves, and we end up providing services to third parties. And in some occasions, they grow exponentially, and then they shift the priority from our team, and we stop managing them. We put someone, and we manage the ones with the largest opportunities. So yes, I encounter a lot of challenges. First, access to capital. was a big challenge. It is always a big challenge for entrepreneurs, but if you are a woman, it becomes extremely challenging because only 2% of the VC money goes to female founders of any nationality. So there is a small allocation of venture capital funds for women. What I did was to skirt the rules. And this is sort of my motto, and it's a book that I'm writing on how can you be creative, how you can think differently than what you were taught in business school when I went to school to get things done. So instead of going to VCs, I did global equity crowdfunding. When people were complaining about not having talent available, I opened the talent pool and I hire remotely. When I learned that businesses are much easier when they have entrepreneurs that are transforming the industry and being perceived or being seen as the ones that are changing the dynamics of the businesses, I decided to work a lot on education. So I could have not only in jumping on the agenda, but shaping the agenda in a little different way than the traditional entrepreneurs will do, because traditional entrepreneurs will be engineers in technology. And I am a communications person. So my background is in communications. I study business and digital marketing, and I work on TV in different series, but the ability to have communications and public relations background helped me to understand the value of the storytelling and the value of building mutually beneficial relationships, because you need to make friends before you need friends, and you need to be seen as a reliable person if you want to introduce any kind of product and services in the market, because companies are funneled through the people that lead them. So leadership is extremely important to attract talent, to get investors, to get partners, and to take the company through the multiple changes in the marketplace.
It's interesting though, Silvina. One of the things, as you know, I've got a new book with my co-author, Michael Crom, called Take Command. And we talk a lot about Dale Carnegie principles and the mindset of Dale Carnegie, which is in what ways can we? And I can only imagine that, your mindset was, you're looking at this, you're saying, look, only 2% of women are able to raise funding from venture capitalists. So some people might have said, well, I guess we're not raising money. Instead, you said, in what ways can we? What could I do? I know we can crowdsource our funding. When you came to barriers, your mindset was around, how do I get this done? And I think it's a really important point for all of us to be thinking about. We all run into barriers wherever we are in our lives, and it's easy just to say, well, it's not going to work. You didn't do that. You said, what other way can I do this? And
because I took command.
Because you took command. That's right. You took command. So what advice would you have for people right now who are stuck? They're stuck with a team, or they're afraid to start something. I mean, what advice do you give to someone about taking command in the face of what appear to be obstacles?
Well, first, read Take Command. I think that they will find a lot of wisdom in the concept of being responsible for their own future. If you don't own your future, if you don't design your future, you just live by chance. So I think this is strategically important, that people feel that they are in charge of what happens to them and how they shape the opportunities that will be presented to them. I was not successful in becoming a $1 million business leader just by chance. I was prepared when the opportunity arose. So being prepared and planning and getting your homework done is a key element to act on the opportunity, getting the opportunity to act on things and becoming successful. Because if the opportunity comes and you are not prepared, then it's an opportunity passing by. But also I think the concept of living by design instead of living by chance. I plan things because I want things to happen, but I'm always prepared to pivot. And I pivot 1,000 times because the market changed. And sometimes when you get to a point in which you say, okay, I'm ready to scale, then the market is taking a new direction. And this is something that I always did, and I was aware of what's coming next, because it's much easier and cheaper to jump onto a wave that is growing than to go against the wind and trying to create a trend with very limited resources. So I think that that's something that it helped me greatly. But it's all about here, especially for women. You need to believe that you can. If you don't believe in your own story, no one will back you up.
That's really true. You've got to believe in yourself and have that self-confidence. I can only imagine that if you hadn't had that, you wouldn't be where you are today. You wouldn't have achieved the things that you have today, but it was really that belief that you had. And maybe even going back to some of the conversations you had with your father or your family, or seeing, people around you who inspired you to your own possibilities. We're all capable of so much more than we think. You were talking a moment ago about trends, following the trend and not going against the wind. And speaking of which, you've started a cryptocurrency, Unicoin, which is something I believe that has been very successful in a very short period of time. You've also got unicorn hunters. How did these things come about? Where'd they come from?
Joe, have you ever heard the phrase that says that scarcity breeds clarity?
Yes.
Exactly from there. I raised money using global equity crowdfunding, Regulation D from the Jobs Act that allows entrepreneurs to sell part of the equity on their company to the public when they are private companies. And I did that at a scale. I raised over $50 million selling equity to global investors. And then I learned that through this methodology, I can help other entrepreneurs to do the same. But if I wanted them to know about that, I needed to have a media company that will present these entrepreneurs to the world. That's why I launched Unicorn Hunters, that, as you said, is like a Shark Tank, except that we are judges, the assessors of the ones that are assessing the opportunities, not only invest in ourselves, but also allowing people to invest in the companies that we show in the show, bringing the opportunity to diverse founders to pitch to global audiences. And the show is distributed across airlines, in streaming platforms, in media all over the Americas, in Europe, in Africa, with over 300 million potential viewers, because we created editorial product that was distributed in a totally different model. Model is financial, it's not editorial. So we partner with media so they can carry the show, they can make money with the show. We get the audience that see the entrepreneurs and invest in them. And with Unicoin, totally interesting story. We saw that cryptocurrencies were going to transform the way people invest and the way people transact, but they have many, many flaws. Volatility, lack of accountability. There was anonymous, there were no backing, there were like kind of a big mess that we end up seeing with the FTX of this world with no regulation. So we said, okay, we'll go the long way. The long way was to do a product that will bring together the best of both worlds, the best of the financial industry, regulated, with assets backing, with transparency, with people showing their faces and responding to their constituencies in a easy and accessible manner. And then the technology of blockchain to create a cryptocurrency that by now sold over $350 million worth of Unicoin in less than a year. It's just seeing like fixing whatever was wrong, like generation one, and building the next generation of cryptocurrencies and leveraging from everything that we have, PR agency, the show, the other platforms, the ecosystems, to build something bigger and carrying our investors with us. So our investors are our biggest ambassadors, and they show in all the companies. So we structure in a way that everybody wins.
It's fascinating how all of this has come about. You had the idea for the show. I believe what you said is anyone can invest. I love watching Shark Tank. It's kind of fun to see the different ideas and so forth. But I can't invest in any of those things. I get to see whether a shark invests or not. And then afterwards, you can find out what happens. If I understand Unicorn Hunters correctly, I, as an audience member, have the ability to invest in one of the things that come up. Is that right?
You can invest in the companies that are in the show. If you're an accredited investor in the US, sadly, the US has regulations that doesn't allow for anyone that is not an accredited investor. But internationally, you can invest without being an accredited investor in any of the companies. And you can also invest in Unicoin that owns a part of all the companies. And it owns real estate, it owns land, it owns stock in companies like Tesla and Meta and many other companies as well. In the US, the restriction is that you have to be an accredited investor. Hopefully, it will change and it will open it up more, but that's as much democratization as we can do with the current regulations.
Everyone's heard about cryptocurrency. What exactly is cryptocurrency? What exactly is Unicoin? You mentioned that it's backed by these assets, by stocks like Tesla and Meta. Could you explain that, please?
Cryptocurrency is a digital currency that is developed on blockchain, that it has two different functions. One is the storage of value, basically that people can buy a crypto and this crypto will be able to hold the value. In our case is the value of the investment portfolio that we have back in the coin. That includes buildings and lands and palm oil plantations in different places and stock and equity of companies and even art. We launched an art initiative to invest in art as a class asset. So we have different class assets that are back in the coin. And on the other side, it has to also have transactional capability, being able to be used as money. And if you think back on the history of money, in the early days of money, it was the bartering industry. You have a bag of salt and then you can trade it for a cow or a hen. And then it was the salt as the unit of payment to be able to transact, and then the gold as the standard for backing the currency, and then Nixon dropped it, and then it was the Federal Reserve. So the current money, the fiat currency, the paper money, the dollars, is shrinking because of the inflation. So a lot of people are now considering, okay, how can we hold better value in a coin or in a platform, in an asset class that will allow me to transact globally, internationally, without changing papers and not having this paper that every day worth less, because the backing of this paper is something that can grow. I cannot say it will grow, but when you diversify the portfolio, chances are that it's very likely to grow because the risk is very hedged. So this is Unicoin, is what we call a cryptocurrency, what we call second generation, because the first one were no asset-backed, anonymous, created by decentralized organizations that were angling towards like solving other challenges that some people may have, like, for example, not having to provide traceability or anonymous things. There is a market for that, not the market that we embrace. We want to have transparency and provide an asset class that it's easy for people to understand, a cryptocurrency that people will say, yeah, that makes sense. It's better than having an equity portfolio in a fund or a mutual fund or even storage in the dollars under the mattress.
Well, it'll be fun to see Unicoin and to see what happens with this currency over time. I mean, having started this and having the innovation around it, people who are listening to this show may think back to this years from now when everyone's talking about Unicoin and think, I remember hearing about it for the first time on the Take Command podcast. Going back for a second, you were talking about your role in PR. You talked about relationship. You became familiar with Dale Carnegie at a young age. And I know when we saw each other in North Carolina, you said, Dale Carnegie had a really important impact on me. Tell us about that, please.
Well, absolutely. I think it was a pivotal point in my life where I read the book and I realized of the importance of building relationships, having top of mind the importance of creating networks, the importance of facilitating and enabling win-win situations for everybody, and the importance of storytelling. By putting yourself on the feet of others, how much you can influence them and how much you can win, creating these perfect circles of good intentions and goodwill. The critical role that contacts, and when I say contacts, I always like to make the analogy with business is a contact sport, because in sport you are tight. And for me, it was quite instrumental in my decision to pursue a career in public relations and the use of communications, relationship building as a key anchor for creating businesses that always brings things together and that brings other people. And with the concept of like lifting other people, we lift ourselves up. And this is also one of the reasons why I also became very active in showcasing the success as you do of other people, because I think that's not only the right thing to do, but it's also the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing when we have success, and it's an even greater thing when we have success in working with other people and bringing out their best, which I think is what you're talking about right now. It's not just about context, but it is about working together and understanding what's important to other people and really achieving success. And that's something clearly you've done. How would you define leadership? What does leadership mean to you?
Leadership is the ability to inspire others, to bring the best out of other people, to see through other people's eyes by also being able to see them in your eyes as well. For me, it's about working together towards a goal, being one of the team, but the one of the team that is keeping everyone together.
It's a wonderful definition. I'm wondering, who is someone in your life who has inspired you to be a better leader?
Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, not this one. Elizabeth, the one that has a book written on her, Elizabeth I. Elizabeth, one CEO, and how through all her journey, she overcame difficulties and overcame challenges and was one of the most powerful women in history. But also I take a lot from the values of the forces, the army. The General Patton was one of the biographies that impacted me a lot. And I think that a little bit of everything. I also was very inspired by the founder of Chobani, Hamdi Ulukaya. It's a social impact leader, not extremely visible, but those that are on the impact ecosystem and know of him. And he was instrumental for me when I have the opportunity to work with him with the refugees, building and deploying our technology to help refugees work remotely. So they could actually make money where they were being hosted in one country with no right to work. So, leadership with impact and changing the concept of impact companies to companies that they manage patient money. I do believe that being an impact entrepreneur is the smartest thing to do from the economic standpoint as well. Not only because it's right, because it's also good business. I got a little bit from everyone. Also, it was impactful for me, Arianna Huffington as well. She is an immigrant from Greece who built a media conglomerate that now it's shifting the business towards living well, living in mindfulness, getting things done on purpose, but not going through the crazy jumps that we went when we were younger, like burning out as entrepreneurs and dying in the process, like enjoying the journey. So for different things in different times of my life, a lot of people impacted me and inspired me.
It's really important to have that, isn't it? I mean, to look at other people, to learn from other people, to have mentors, whether they know us or we know them or not. But, there are people all around us. I love to listen to Audible and listen to biographies. It can inspire us to be our best version of ourselves if we're open to what's happening around us and what other people have done. And we're not alone. There are other people who've done amazing things. And what can we learn from them?
Yes, and it's always cheaper to learn from other people's mistakes. So it's very efficient as well. We'd love to learn what you are listening in Audible, because I love Audible and I love to listen to biographies. So maybe we can trade notes on that.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. And I've got a lot of credits too. I don't know about you. It seems like I always try to get to them, but I don't know. I've got more books to get to. So what's something that you've been listening to that you like?
I lead or listen, mainly listen, because when I'm exercising, I put on the headset so I kill time. When I'm driving, I put on the different podcasts as well. One in particular that I like a lot is a Mexican entrepreneur that talks about curiosity about life, like the type of questions that, we always wonder what this was the origin of that, like, for example, the origin of love, the origin of monogamy, or the why we get tired, or how do we age. Marta de Baile, if someone want to practice Spanish, she's amazing, and I'm following her podcast. I'm also now listening a lot about wellness and how to age gracefully, because we're in that age too. you need to see what you are eating, how, to exercise, how much you need to sleep and all these things, and biohacking. I like Dr. Asprey a lot. I learning a lot about neuroscience and the impact of Buddhism on having a better outlook of our life and spirituality and stress and impact of hormones in how we live life, like a little bit of everything. I'm very curious and I never learn enough. Usually what I listen to has absolutely nothing to do with cryptocurrencies. This is what I do, not who I am. So
it's nice to be able to get out of that work mindset sometimes and just to learn about something different. By the way, I don't know if you know Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who is, you were talking about Buddhism, he's a philosophical Buddhist, but he talks about in his books, he's got a new book or a relatively new book called The Earned Life. Every breath I take is a new me, right? It's the whole idea that he really is about celebrating life. So I found a lot of joy and insight in his reading. If you look back at your life, we all learn, and certainly we want to keep getting better and improve. If you look back and you were talking to yourself at an earlier stage of your career, what insight or learning, what would you tell a younger version of yourself?
Face yourself. As a younger me, I rushed too fast to get things done. I was very much in need of controlling the outcome, and it didn't help me. It exhausted me. It made me not being able to think as clearly as I could have done if I take one step at a time and learn to prioritize radically. Also, not feeling that I needed to give anyone explanations of what I do and how I do it, and believing in myself. I think it was one of the key learnings that changed my life, not having to seek for approval in other people. And we come with this chip installed in our brains because of this famous imposter syndrome, that we are just successful by chance, not by design, not because we work hard. So I have to reset periodically on that. And you are never done. It's just the carrot gets higher and higher every time. Today I will give some lessons to my younger self, but tomorrow I probably look at myself and say, you should have done this better.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I got to tell you, I think to myself often about what I might have said to my younger self. I love what you said about pace yourself. I know that when I was younger, I was working so hard at times I'd get myself sick, getting to bed late, getting up early, those kinds of things. And also believe in yourself. It's liberating when you really stop worrying so much about what other people are thinking. And when you're younger, you think everyone is focused on you, and they're not. They're focused on themselves. But I think, Silvina, often about what would a future Joe say to me now? The Joe 10 or 20 years, what would he say right now? So I could try to get that insight. I still haven't figured that out yet. But thank you so much for being on the show. You've been terrific. I know that our audience is going to love having learned from you.
Thank you, Joe. It was absolutely a pleasure to join you.
In today's Thought Leadership Spotlight segment, our guest will talk about how to deal with our doubts and work with enthusiasm toward our dreams by applying one of Dale Carnegie's principles and arousing in the other person an eager want. Like Silvina Moschini, our guest shows us how to take command of our thoughts, chase our dreams, and build our own castle. Please welcome the General Manager of Dale Carnegie Nuevo Leon, Mexico, Adriana Cruz.
It was 1973. I still remember myself reading the letter my father wrote to me. Back then, my father decided to leave the company he was working for, his engineering position, friends, and especially family, to move to a new place, one that we soon will call home. He wanted to build his own castle, as Silvina said. His letter was full of hope. He painted beautiful images of the people, of the mountains, and his feeling of chasing a dream. My father felt alive. I believed. As Dale Carnegie once said, first, arouse in the other person an eager want. He who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. He made us want his dream as a family. I remember growing up seeing how he dealt with his doubts and pushed himself forward with enthusiasm. Now I am building my own castle. I deal with that every day. I struggle between what I want and my inner voice, which sometimes tries to keep me in my comfort zone. I kept my father's letter as a reminder. I like to read it every time I ask myself, am I still building my castle? So, my learning from this experience is that we can all listen to our inner voice and let our castles become real.
Join us and order a copy of Take Command in hardcover, ebook, or audiobook format at your favorite bookseller or at takecommandbook.io. Also, you can visit takecommand.com for more information about the book and additional resources. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Take Command, a Dale Carnegie podcast. Check out our resources page at www.dalecarnegie.com for more research, insight, and tools that will support your success in taking command of your leadership potential. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating it and subscribing to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, thank you for listening, and we look forward to you joining us for the next episode of Take Command, a Dale Carnegie podcast.